Wow. Thank you, Olivier. That was a really fantastic session. I've got a ton of questions for you. We have a few questions coming in from the audience. Um, first I want to say hello and welcome. How
Hello. I'm good. Thank you so much. It's really nice to be here.
Good, good. Yeah, we're thrilled to have you for our expo. Um, let's take a step back. Can you tell us a bit about your beginnings? What was it about cranes that first inspired you to get into this work?
Oh, it always gives me goosebumps when I talk about cranes. The story of me and the cranes, it's a long story from when I was a little boy. Like we used to see them everywhere, and we used to watch them when we were collecting water. And most of the time, every day, we had something to use them. Like we always told each other, like, let's wake up when the cranes call for the first time to go fetch water. So they were part of our lives. So growing up, and becoming a vet, I was a gorilla doctor, but I realized that cranes were in danger, and I could really not stand. I could not sit and see them disappearing, and that's when I really stepped out of my comfort zone and took initiative to really work hard to save the cranes in Rwanda and bring a whole team together.
That's great. And so, having experience with the mountain gorillas, which have received a lot of attention, did you feel that something that was less known, like the cranes, needed a champion, needed the extra support?
Absolutely, yeah. That's something that really went in my head. Like sometimes um, it can be easy for big species. They all need is conservation. But for when we start this work, there were less cranes in Rwanda in the wild than mountain gorillas. But yet, if you could see like the number of organizations working to save the mountain gorillas, it was really huge compared to the efforts that cranes were receiving. So I told myself like it's really time to do something and raise the profile of cranes, and I really thank everyone who's helped us really to help and put cranes up there so that everyone knows that we need to save them. Yeah.
Great. And for some of the audience who maybe joined a little bit late, could you just tell us a little bit more about what makes the cranes so threatened? What is it about the illegal trade that has put them into such jeopardy?
So for years and years, cranes used to coexist with people in those landscape. But as things changed and the people lost that kind of balance, the connection, people found it okay to start having them in their gardens. So in my country, especially, there was a huge demand for cranes to come in the gardens. People wanted to have them in their gardens. So local communities, driven by poverty, lack of awareness, and the lack of law enforcement, like they would hunt them and sell them to those people in town who want to have them in their gardens. So when they end in the gardens, people cut feathers to stop them from flying, and sometimes they break the wings. So cranes are disabled and they are injured, and most of the time they can't breed, they can't mate and have chicks in a captivity. So this really was a huge driver of the decline of cranes in Rwanda, but also in the whole range in the countries where they are. Another big problem is habitat loss. With human population increase, there is a huge pressure on wetlands, where wetlands that are used for cranes for food and for breeding are transformed for agriculture. So cranes lose the perfect breeding site. So those two factors have really driven cranes to nearly extinction in my country, and has caused, like, we've lost about 80% of the whole population in their range. There is also a huge international demand for pet trade. They are beautiful, and many people want to create a safari park, and that kind of demand also really caused a huge decline.
Yeah. So then we have a couple questions from the audience about sort of the rehabilitation and release of cranes. So first, Jennifer wanted to know if any of the released cranes have started to reproduce and rebuild their numbers. And then along those lines, we have a question from Sarah that says she loves that you're able to reunite the chicks with their parents. And in her work, they've been able to foster wild parrots into other nests. when needed. And so if for any reason you can't get a chick back with its parents, is it possible to foster them with another nest?
Thank you so much. So to answer the question of Jennifer, yeah, when we release cranes, so we've used what we call a soft release. So we found a large place in the national park with a perfect habitat. So we fenced it to make sure predators would not come in. So we gave cranes the perfect habitat. We're giving them more food, like to supplement them. But whenever they were ready, they had new flight feathers, they would fly. So we've been following them. Some of them we feed them with GPS tags, and we were able to see where they are going in real time. And much more, like we've seen, like really so many cranes breeding. We've recorded the number of chicks that were born from the cranes that we have introduced. And at the moment, we've seen like cranes really that we have released, like taking a huge like range. Some of them going to neighboring countries, because we release them in the eastern part of the country in the Akagera National Park. So some of them are even crossing to go to Tanzania, to Uganda, which is like bringing now like even like a way we want to work together with this neighboring country to even protect cranes more. Because if we don't move towards this transboundary collaboration, cranes might be protected on one side. If they're not protected on the other side, our efforts might be reduced. So we are trying now to move towards working together with other countries. For the chicks, so yeah, like we have found out that when the cranes, usually when the cranes have chicks, when people approach, they run away to try and show people that our chicks are not here, to kind of, it's like lying, directing people in different ways. So most of the time when they come back, when people have taken chicks, they keep looking, they think their chicks are still around. So there is a certain amount of time that cranes, the parents, staying in the same place looking for their chicks. Because the chicks, they don't run around, they only hide. That's their way of escaping. So when in a short time, you are able to find the chicks and bring them back in that kind of range of habitat, a simple call, like they will call and they will really connect with their parents. So with fostering, it's really hard because cranes, like the nest, they do not, there is no synchronization of nesting, like it's not happening at the same time, and it's not the same age. And cranes, they are so territorial. So where we have a nest, we might have another nest really in a very far place. So it would be really hard to take chicks from one nest and bring them to another family to adopt them. And for the chicks that were not able to reunite with their parents, we brought them to our place, our sanctuary. And some cranes, they are really good at adopting actually the young ones. But it's a whole process when you put them together in cages that are close to each other, and you see the reaction, and then sometimes you open them together to see if they can really adopt them. So, but some of the other ones really just avoid it. But yeah, in general, we've seen cranes, they are curious about the new chicks and they always look, but a few of them we adopt the young ones.
Now, it's clear that RWCA does so much work with local communities, and that community-based conservation approach is really the key to your success. And you're a young guy yourself, and I'm wondering, do you see a shift happening in Rwanda or in East Africa where more young people are getting more actively involved in conservation, whether it's as a career or whether it's part of, just adopting more conservation friendly practices?
Absolutely. I always tell people when I started to do conservation, like there were only like a few young people in the conservation. And actually we thought like there were many international organizations, and it was really hard like to see career in there. We thought like conservation was for other people, but at the moment, I think we are seeing more and more young people like starting having initiatives. And for example, our team, we have like more than 100 people. And we have seen like so many like organization like born and started by Rwandans, and the people are really loving it, and much more with our country really relying a lot on tourism. People are understanding more the role of wildlife. So they are saying that if we are going to be successful with tourism, we need to protect our species, our natural places. So yeah, many young people are talking about it, and I receive a lot of emails and calls of people having ideas or wanting to join our teams. So yeah, the future is really amazing, and there is a hope for, yeah.
Good, I love that. Now we've got a ton of questions, and we're not going to be able to get to them all, but a couple more for now. So tell us a little bit. But in your session, you mentioned some of the other species that your organization is focusing on, like the sitatunga, the bats, some parrots. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do beyond the cranes?
So when we found that this approach we are using for cranes was working, we said, why not like expanding to other species? It's actually simple. So we believe that every species counts. And so we select those species that are really in much need, that are not receiving some of the help. And we implement the same approach. And our approach relies on really bringing communities at the forefront. So we train community members to monitor and protect their species and their habitats. And it's been really easy for us, the way we recruit, we go into the community, we find people with a passion, and then we don't even tell them we are recruiting. And then after some time we call them, say, would you be interested to do this? And they come and we train them, give them this smartphone with a cyber tracker, and we design some apps, like some like software, like to really help them, enable them in the local language to collect information that we need. So in a real time, in a places that we would never be at the same time, we have people there. Like just like recently, there was a crane that was injured by someone, but we got to know right away, and the people took initiative. They called the local leaders. So sometimes I feel like I'm going to sit back and really relax to see people like actually practicing conservation, and it makes me really, really happy. You know, I'm a veterinarian, and I really love to go out and do some work with animals, and be in those places, in the wild places, and and sometimes I feel like a little bit jealous when I see the members of the communities doing it, but I think it's the way. We need to empower the communities to do that. So yeah, we are working to save African gray parrots, shoebill storks, statunga. Like shoebill and statunga, they both rely on wetlands, same habitat with cranes. So it's just, yeah, the same concept like of monitoring and then sending us data and avoiding poaching, like mainly like making sure people reduce poaching and hunting.
Great. So now I'm so sorry to do this, but we have to wrap up so that we can get on with the next session. But there are a lot of more questions to be had. And I think, Olivier, you have so much more to share. So everybody, please join Olivier in his booth, which you can find in the exhibitor section at our next break coming up at 10:15 a.m. Pacific, which is 30 minutes from now. But Olivier, thank you so much for joining us. That was awesome. And everybody else, please stay tuned for the next session on Ethiopian wolves. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.